Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane Groeneveld, CEO of Huddl3 Group, and today I have Amy Landry joining me. Amy's the program manager for the Women's Leadership Academy at Loyola University, New Orleans. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pretty cool job title you have right now. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about the Women's Leadership Academy. But before we jump into that, perhaps you could provide our listeners a little bit of a backstory on your personal and business journey to date.
Absolutely. I would love to. But before, fun fact, one of my very good friends just had a baby literally an hour ago and named the baby Dane. Isn't that fun?
Great. She's clearly got great taste.
Clearly it was a family name, and so Dane, I was like, that's so odd. What are the odds of that?
Absolutely, absolutely zero.
Right, it's not many, but so my background, I come from Texas. I was born and raised in Houston. Not many actual native Houstonians. And I'm middle child, 2 brothers, and I went to a small state school in Texas, and I was a hospitality undergrad. And when I graduated from college, my dream was to work at the happiest place on earth. So I went and worked for Walt Disney, and I absolutely loved it. And then I thought my dream was to work on a cruise line, like a cruise ship, to leave from the Love Boat. I had all the great visions. And so I applied and got hired, and I went, and it is not a dream job, by the way, just FYI. If you ever take a cruise, it is very, very hard work.
Have some empathy for the workers on board.
My gosh. I mean, I love people, and I had a really hard time liking people working on a cruise ship. It was really hard. It's hard work. So yes, have some empathy. But and overtime starts at 70 hours a week, by the way. It's a whole podcast interview.
That is.
But and unfortunately, I literally broke my leg dancing on the ship. I think I was leading the Funky Fish, the YMCA. I did all the crew staff activities. I was crew staff. So I came back home to Texas, and I really honestly had a quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
So I was 24. I was like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? I didn't really have a career path at that moment. I wasn't married, no potential yet. So I really did. So I found a book, and it was called Do What You Are.
Uh-huh.
And it was an introduction to personalities, so Myers-Briggs. And I read it, and I just became fascinated with Myers-Briggs. And I was like, oh, wow, this explains so much. So, the extroversion and intuition and sensing. And so I realized that I wanted to go back to grad school. So I applied and went back to grad school in Houston. Conrad Hilton started a college, his university there. So it's an incredible hospitality program. And I went back, and I found my passion in human resources, but really understanding how people work together. And I was fascinated by the recruitment process and the training and development. And I think I really appreciate it coming from Walt Disney. Disney does an incredible job with their training of their people, really understanding the culture and the vision and the mission. And so I liked that. And I had an incredible HR professor in grad school. And so that is kind of how I got my HR roots. And I was hired from in Houston to New Orleans. And it was in 2006, which sure you remember, or you might not remember, but in 2005 was when New Orleans was hit by Katrina.
Yes.
And so I came in 2006, which I ended up not even, it was not a desire. Many people came back to rebuild the city, but I just came but I really did get to help rebuild the city. And so I started with Hilton, and then I ended up opening the Roosevelt Hotel, which is a Waldorf Astoria hotel that Conrad Hilton actually bought, I think, in 1949. So I was able to open up the Roosevelt. So I hired 504. I helped hire 504 employees.
Big team.
it's a big team, and I did all the orientation and training, and it was incredible. And then I get married, and yeah. Do you want me to keep going? Was that? I feel like I'm still rambling.
No, you're rolling. No, you're absolutely rolling, and it's good to give me some context, and obviously the listeners some context as we go deeper into where you are now and how you're seeing the changes in teamwork and the future of teamwork. But so you get to the Roosevelt. That's a very high end Waldorf property. A lot of team to onboard and a very new culture to build.
For sure.
That's a grind, and now family life comes along. So where does that
the family life comes along. And honestly, it was really fascinating because I got to help develop a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and Resorts did not exist. And so when I was working with Hilton, I got to help create it, which was incredible. They flew us all to Beverly Hills. We got to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
That sounds good.
Yes. And although I had known about personality, this is a really funny story. I was engaged at the time. We were opening the hotel. I was engaged at the time, and I went through a personality program called Emergenetics. And so this was another deep dive in your personality. And I remember getting my Emergenetics, and then I remember reading all about myself. And then the instructor at that time, I had this eye-opening moment that, oh my gosh, I am about to marry my complete opposite. My husband is completely opposite. Like, I was all yellow, red, so conceptual and social. And my husband is an engineer. He's blue and analytical and structured. And so I had this brief panic, and I don't know if I started crying, but I had a total panic moment, a meltdown of am I making a mistake? And I just remember the instructor was so incredibly kind, but she's like, no, actually, diversity and differences attract.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to learn how to work together and respect each other and really leverage the differences, or you do build resentment.
Yes.
And so I resentment and the differences. So honestly, I was like, okay, I'm ready for a challenge. I guess I was naive. But and honestly, Philip and I, my husband and I, have been married for 13 years.
Uh-huh.
And we do our marriage is we're very different still. And we communicate very differently. And it's not easy. I will be the first. We're different, but we do have, we do better each other, I think. So.
Yeah. It's funny how work can inform, improve, and at times detract from our relationships at home. We're part of teams at work, and we become a role, we become a person. We get this affirmation that, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And then we go home to a different team because our families are a team. And I'm sure you've got it. I'm sure a lot of other families have had it. But when you get home and you try the work voice out, or you forget that your position, your role in the team at home is not the same as your role at team at work.
Yes, it is. It's so true. But I have done many classes on Myers-Briggs and personality, but I have never done a class, and I've done countless, without somebody coming up to ask me, can you give this to my partner? Or how does somebody, I need to know more information, because once you learn, it is fascinating stuff. I'm an extrovert, my husband's an introvert. Everything about us is different, but it's still hard to, and I'm a professional, and I know, I know why we're not seeing eye to eye. But so I opened, and I was a training and development manager. And then I ended up, I wanted to apply to be an HR director, which hats off to all the HR professionals out there at the moment. They're navigating all of everything.
So much change.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But I thought I wanted to be an HR director, which, again, my personality is not the best for being in HR. Because you really do have a lot of heavy conversations, and you have to terminate a lot of people. And it just was not it just was terrible. But I did love working. I had my daughter in 2013. So she's now 8, but I had Ava. And honestly, my return back to work was really difficult, and it was an eye-opening experience because I was in HR. I was used to being being able to give people resources and to help, but nothing existed. Like nothing was there to help me. It was like I was on an island all by myself. Nobody talked about how hard it was. Nobody talked about like, oh my gosh, breastfeeding is like a full-time job. It literally is. And so it was a really traumatizing time. But also I had requested to work from home 2 days a week and then be in the office 3 days, which, remote work was just like, oh my gosh, mind blowing back then. But it ended up being like, no, we need you here full time. And then it just was I ended up saying, I can't do this. I cannot be here full time.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave. So I started consulting and opened up my own training business, which I never ever thought I would be a business owner or, be an entrepreneur, but I did, which was a scary big leap.
Yeah.
But also from my personal traumatizing experience returning back to work, I wanted to work or
So when it comes to that trauma of returning to work and then you say, okay, it's not going to work like this. I'm going to start my own business. In the consulting and training business, were you still focusing primarily on the hospitality world, or did you start broadening out?
Good question. Good question. I actually did a wide variety of industry. I did oil and gas and real estate. My first job was with a large real estate company,
right?
Doing like team building and leadership training. And I joined a women's business association, which really, I think my first step into learning or growing an appreciation for working with women. And it honestly just changed my life. And I think that I took my frustration and my pain, and I wanted I wanted to use it for purpose.
You channeled it.
I did. I wanted to channel it because my experience was so hard. But honestly, Dane, like one of my bosses at the time told me, I'm really sorry, but I just don't think you can be a good mother and have a successful career at the same time.
They said that.
Yes, verbatim.
That's ridiculous.
There's pregnancy discrimination and women face it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like this is my story that sounds, oh my gosh, how terrible, but that happens all the time. And even like benevolent discrimination, which I got really into learning about discrimination and for women and all the struggles that we kind of face. But benevolent discrimination happens all the time. Like, oh, you don't want this job, you're about to have a baby, or don't give her that. She, you need to be home with your kids. And there's a lot that happens and we don't even as women realize sometimes. But mine was so hard, and especially just having a daughter. And I'm like, I want to change the script for
Ava.
For her.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it for now, but I want 12 months of maternity leave, or I want you to be able to, know that you can go to college, achieve your dreams, be an engineer, be an architect. But then when you have a baby, society and your company is going to support you.
Yes.
And we shouldn't have to like pick one or the other. And so I got really passionate about women's rights and just working with women, and then also equal pay day.
Yes.
And equal pay. How I became really involved with equal pay is, well, from being an HR director, I had countless salary negotiation conversations, and honestly, it was always the woman that would not be playing hardball. And a personal experience I helped somebody get a job, a former actual employee of mine. I helped her get a job, and she called me up after she got the job.
Yeah.
And she called me and she's like, oh my gosh. And she's crying. I was like, what is going on? And she's like, well, they offered me, let's just say it was $50,000, right? I was like, okay. She's like, but Amy, I know that the salary pay was 60, but they only offered me 50. And I was like, well, what did you put on your salary request? She's like, well, I put 45.
Yeah.
45. I was like, but the disconnect, I was like, you're lucky they gave you 45. You're lucky they gave you 50.
Yeah.
Because you discounted yourself. And if you're willing to take it, a company is not, this is business. Like you have to make profit. And so, but that her experiences, it happens all the time of women. And actually there's a book, it's called Women Don't Ask. And the research shows that men, when you talk about a metaphor and you think about what negotiation is, men reference, it's like playing a game.
Yes.
And women, it's like going to the dentist.
Oh, wow.
Which, right?
I hate
Crazy.
going to the dentist.
I didn't want to say it, but I absolutely hate it too. Like, it's terrible. So, but I just got like mad. And when I get, and I use, again, I try to use energy and energy for good. It's like, well, how can we change this narrative? What can we do? So I created an Equal Pay Day event with my Women's Business Association on National Equal Pay Day. There's a National Equal Pay Day. And we taught, we had an equal day speaker, and then we taught, we had mock negotiation exercises, and where you would discuss salary. And so it ended up like becoming a really popular event. Yeah. And then in the next couple of years, it's raised thousands of dollars for scholarship. I got to be on the news a couple times for it. It's just good stuff. And then I even spoke at the Louisiana legislative session on Equal Pay Day. But how I was connected with my current job, Loyola, is they were looking to grow programs, and I served on a board, so an educational board, and they were like, "Oh, let's meet." So I met, and I actually came because I wanted them to host the Equal Pay Day event.
Oh, that's a good reason to turn up.
Right. I was like, this type of information, like, we have all these women, we have 50 women, business women in the community. We would love to come in and teach negotiation skills to your graduating seniors, and to be able to give them this confidence and encouragement. And so, but during that initial meeting, and this was back in 2018, so almost 5 years ago, Loyola University in New Orleans had just hired its first female president. Mm-hmm. And Jesuit lay person, and her name was President Tanya Tetlow. And so it just was really good energy and momentum. And so I just said, like, randomly, like, Loyola should create a women's leadership academy. Like, there's a need. Like, women want, like, to be in a space to grow and connect. And, like, we really need this. Yeah. And so, it was like this little passing thought. And so I guess the thought started to gain some, because like the next week I got a survey from the woman I had a meeting with about they were wanting to explore if there was a need for this. And then I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think she sent it to 30 women. Yeah. Or whoever. And then it was like 300 people responding because everybody was forwarding it. They're like, oh my gosh. Like, that's so fantastic. So like 300 people responded, and then the senior leadership team at Loyola, they were like, okay, there is a need, let's create it. And then I don't know if you know anything about academia, or you do. You're professors. Yeah, I forgot. But it's kind of a slow moving entity. But when you have the president of the university supporting an initiative, it's like green lit. It got moving, and then it really picked up momentum so fast. And then in January, when applications opened, our goal was 40 women. We had like 40 women apply overnight. It was bananas. And then they paid the tuition. And then we're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. So, but it was for professional women, so executive women. So, we've had a judge, we've had an NOPD, we have had a New Orleans Police Department sergeant come in, we've had engineers, we've had CEOs, we've had incredible, amazing women, but a lot of them are at the top of they're the only woman at the table in their prospective company. And they just need more connection, and they want to feel more, in an environment where they get support. And I love busting the myth that women don't like to compete. We actually like to collaborate, and we like to support each other. We like to encourage each other. And so I think that is not the truth, because from what I have seen of women coming together, wanting to give back, wanting to bring women up, has just been like awe-inspiring. So we started cohort 1, or our class 1, and now we are in the 4th year. Fantastic. And I was hired as a program facilitator, but I have not gone away, and I just keep yelling, like, there's more and more and more that we can do. So I've moved into the program manager role. So I'm getting to help manage the program. So we're looking at funders, and we're looking to partner with the college, the Women's Resource Center, and maybe create a big Women's Leadership Institute,
That's fantastic. No,
Yeah.
that's exciting, and it is so needed. It's interesting what you just said there about perhaps women not wanting to compete and go out and do the bravado, the YPO, the Young Presidents Associations, and that type of stuff, and actually wanting to collaborate, wanting to learn. There's clearly a gap. There's a vacuum there, and we need to create more of these types of programs. And it's not going to just be for women. I think we're going to see lots of other demographics popping up in the workforce,
Sure.
particularly in the future. But I think starting with women's a great place, particularly as you said, those women that are somewhat alone, leading the top of their organizations, not having a lot of peers in the industry as we continue to drive equal pay and better diversity in the workplace.
For sure.
Yeah. So tell me about what that means as far as the team. Like, do you find that the women that come through in your cohorts are processing some of their day-to-day work issues while they're on the course? Is it very interactive? Are they doing more book learning and then getting together socially to do other things? Like, how do they form teams within the program?
Well, I mean, you have to, as a trainer, you have to craft these things.
Yes, you're in charge.
Yeah. And you have to, if you don't force somebody to do it, they're not going to do it, you know? So we have our personal, our Women's Leadership Academy, the program is 10 months. And it's a full day once a month on campus.
Yeah.
And then it's broken down. We have a keynote speaker in the morning. So typically a high profile speaker. We've utilized some of our Loyola professors come in, and then we do break them into small groups. We utilize the Myers-Briggs instrument because it was created by two women. So it's a Women's Leadership Academy. And
why not?
Obviously, but we utilize Myers-Briggs, and then we use the personal impact report, which goes through your team style, your decision-making style, communication, conflict resolution, stress management, change approach, and your overall leadership style. So each month has a theme, and then we also give them an individual growth strategy where you have to assess, where am I right now? What skills do I want to build? What goals? Because I think everybody joins the program, they want something. Yeah. So many of them are looking to, be promoted, or they're also searching, like, what's my next step? And so they're all kind of seeking something. So it's a lot of helping the woman to kind of identify what they want, and then helping them get there. And we place them with a mentor. So each woman gets a mentor, which it's really, really hard to place when you have, we had an elected judge and we had to find the judge a mentor. I'm like, this is really hard.
Yeah, I bet.
It's tricky. But everybody is just incredible. But we do place them with a mentor, and then we also break them into small groups. And the small groups are based on different personality styles.
Right. So you're trying to create a bit of diversity of style within those work groups. Yes.
And diversity is huge. It's very important to me. Our cohort is extremely diverse, not only in ethnicity. We're 50% white, 30% African American, 10% Hispanic and Asian, and then 3%. So it's a very diverse group. And then our ages range from 25 to 62.
Yeah.
And also we have all different occupations and industries. So being able to hear, as a surgeon, a surgeon hear from somebody in the education realm, and, or a fundraiser. And so have all these unique perspectives, but then also the experience of myself as a white woman is extremely different from somebody as a Black woman. Yeah. And we have those conversations. We talk about that very openly. Like, I have a different experience than you, and we have to be aware, and we can't just, sugarcoat it or walk around it, because then we're not having, like, real change is not happening. So one of the things we're working and looking on, how do we create maybe a diversity and equity inclusion summit where it's not just checking that box of, we have, diversity, but how do we really really make it impactful and inclusive and make it change. Because a lot of times I think, and this comes from HR compliance world, I understand that, like we check the box. Oh, I hired my demographics box checked, but that's not the end. So we're looking to dig deeper, but we do force the differences, and that's the diversity, which is so amazing to understand. If I put a whole table of extroverts together, they blah, 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 blah. But if you put, 3 extroverts and 3 introverts, and then they all have different personality styles, I mean, the conversation just goes much deeper because you're like, wow, I never thought about that. And I think that creativity comes from difference in thought, and that is personality type.
Yeah.
And also personality type is the number one conflict in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So differences in personality is huge. And having these conversations like, well, you're butting heads because you have a different personality, and you have to, as I mentioned, you have to learn to appreciate.
Yes.
But, we are all human and we like our own personal personalities best. I mean, that's just nature, but we do have to learn our own, gifts. And then also the, where we can, where we need help, right?
It's funny on the needing help. Sometimes I listened to a book the other day on a drive. My wife was pushing me to read the 5 love languages. I don't know if you've come across that. And there's a version of that for business too. And my biggest takeaway from that is that I'll often walk into a meeting or a team environment thinking about my style, but I'm not thinking about their style and what they value. And so going in and creating an environment that allows those other individuals, particularly those diverse individuals in the group, to feel comfortable to make their contribution. There's both art and science to that, but there's, like you said earlier about being a facilitator, you need to make that happen. It won't just happen organically.
No, it does not. And I mean, we talk a lot about this in women's leadership, but I think it's your job as the leader and as the person to be able to adapt. Yeah. And you have to adapt because they're not going to adapt to you. And and some people are like, well, I'm not being authentic. Like, this is who I am, but if you're managing and you're a leader of a team, you have to understand that, okay, maybe you don't need the warm and fuzzies good morning, but your employee they do. Like, so if you're going to want to lead them and get the best out of them, you have to kind of customize. I mean, that's that whole like customer service facing of like the platinum rule. Have you ever heard the platinum rule?
No, I haven't. Tell me more on that.
So customer service. But it's the golden rule. Do you know what the golden rule is?
No.
You don't know what the golden rule is?
Customer service. I passed over that one.
Oh my gosh, you never heard the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
Oh, I've heard of that rule, but I didn't know it's called the golden rule.
Yeah, yes, that's the golden rule. It's like a whole book, like the golden, yes. So the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do to you. But there's a book and it was written and it's called the Platinum Book. And it's a whole mindset of do unto others as they would have, like their preference, like thinking about how they would want. And so
which is exactly what that 5 love languages book says as
100%. I love that your wife made you do that. Did you take the quiz and do the?
I did. Yeah.
What is your love language?
I had 2. One was physical touch and the other was quality time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was your wife different or the same?
Different. It was words of affirmation and quality time.
Okay. So you have quality time. That's good.
Yeah.
So you just need to tell her nice things every day.
That's right.
Nice things.
Yeah. Stop being.
Tell her, you're so pretty. I love you every day. Every day.
That's it.
Mine is words of affirmation too, but my husband's like, I don't care. I'm not reading that book, and I'm not like you.
But the business version of the book's exactly the same. It's like your customer might be more about words of affirmation and you talking to them about how well they've done, how well their business is doing. Where another one might be quality time. They don't want you to be, just saying stuff about how well they're doing. They want you to go out and really spend time getting to know them and appreciate the challenges that they've got. So it is an interesting approach. So I'm going to keep the platinum rule locked up here.
For sure. And it is being able to relate to somebody.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's that whole emotional intelligence piece of being able to like read and pick up on feelings. And
Yeah. You just, you're back.
it's like, did I just lose electricity? I mean, we live in New Orleans. Lord knows.
It can all happen. When you think about those teams then, so you used a great word about forcing the difference. How often do you see, you've had a few cohorts right now, how often do you see your course participants go back to their businesses and start forcing the difference, start using some of the personality profiling in their teams? And is there sort of a story or a discourse coming back from that?
Yeah, no, actually quite often. So quite often, we are women that have taken the program, they want to bring it back to their teams. So a lot of the material that we do, people want to bring it back because I mean, it's just such a powerful information to, the more you know about yourself, the better you can, control.
Yes.
And I always say, like, you cannot change or control anybody else, but you can control yourself.
Yeah.
And learn. So the more you know how to control yourself, you can relate to others. But I think all the time, I mean, people are going back. And we also, we do a book club as well.
Yep.
And we did a Brene Brown book club.
I love her. She's great.
We did. So we did Dare to Lead. We read the book and that was in our book club. But the next thing I know is, they're taking it back to their teams and they're making them read the book and they're doing all this. So, I mean, it's great.
It's really
seeing the learning being transferred back.
Yeah. I go to a group called Vistage, used to be called the Executive Connection. So we sit with a dozen to 15 other company presidents, CEOs, and similar to what your program sounds like, we'll have an outside speaker come in and we'll then process some issues, do some profiles, whether it's I haven't done Myers-Briggs, but it's a Berkman or a DISC or any number of other profiles. And we really talk about that. I think my team get a little bit nervous because after my Vistage meeting, I always come back and I'm like, we just did this great exercise, or we had this great speaker and I really want you to try it. But it's important to have that time, when you're a leader and you've got a team that you're managing, it's easy to get buried in the day job. But to have that time to step away from your business, get the perspective of other people in other roles, other businesses, really digest whatever material you're covering. And then there's a little bit more clarity, a little bit more certainty about how you take that back to the team. I think it's a really good process. I think more learning, corporate development should be delivered that way because it's you're not getting hit over the head with a sledgehammer doing 6 weeks of straight classes and then forgetting it all really quickly because you can't really take the time to absorb each piece.
For sure. Well, and I think I have heard a big takeaway is the women are able to come once a month and like we say, no phones, like clear your calendar. You've got to commit. If you were accepted in the program, we need you here. Yeah. And so for them to have that opportunity to really like dig in and self-reflect and give themselves that time, because you're right. Like if you don't carve out that time and make it intentional, then it never happens. I mean, we so often don't do those big rocks because we're like so busy putting out the tiny fires. But I mean, that training, that professional development is so important that you need to carve out that time. And especially with women having so many responsibilities and hats that we wear, you know, that you don't get to really stop and be like, oh, hey, what are my boundaries? Like how can I like fill my cup again and, really be my best me? And so that part has been great to be able to have that time. Yeah. But even coming back from like my experience way back when I was a trainer and working, it was like pulling teeth, Dane, to like get people to come to the training, right? So like they were required, but they were like, oh, I don't have time. Like everything's so busy. But it's like if you don't make time, it won't happen. And you have to make the time, especially for professional development, to stop, to reflect, to think, to encourage, to get inspired. And
And
Yeah,
it takes a bit
you
of
just have
muscle
to.
memory, but 10 months in, I'm sure they're sad to be finishing.
Yeah, oh my, they are. They are so sad. So right now we have 123 alumni,
Wow.
and one of our women came up and they're like, I want, can I create an alumni board? I was like, of course you can. So now we're building an alumni board, and they'll help like continue to grow, because I mean, we really are at such a growth phase at this moment with the academy, and looking
Yeah.
really to partner with then the Women's Resource Center to really build out, I mean, potentially the Women's Leadership Institute. So we can provide more programs. We can expand. We want to do an online program so women all over the globe can do it, and so there's a lot of potential being able to grow needed programs.
Absolutely. And is there anything that your program is, or your participants are starting to do as they think the future and they think grassroots? You talked about it earlier. How do you position Ava to have the confidence that she can go to college and be an architect and engineer or whatever else? Is there anything that these cohorts of women in leadership roles are doing back into the community to create more education, more pull through for the future, female talent?
Yeah, no, great question. And so since we're now going, I mean, this is the 4th year and we're going into the 5th year. And with my new role as the program manager, I really pitched that as like, I want to build a pipeline, because I'm a Girl Scout troop leader too.
Nice.
I mean, I just throw that out there. I have a vest and everything.
Yeah.
But our Girl Scout, there's a badge that these are the girls can earn. I was like, but we have the entity. We need to be reaching out and pulling up and doing a leadership seminar. And also I participate in Girls on the Run. That is another mind empowerment program for little girls. And so that is one of my focuses this year, is to really, how do we connect like all the dots?
Yeah.
And I just got off the phone, or had a call this morning with her name is Patricia, and she runs the Women's Resource Center at Loyola.
Yeah.
And we're looking at how can we start combining these programs.
Right.
Just to combining our effort. And so really collaborating. She's actually taking the program right now, and she's like, this is amazing. I was like, it is. And we really should be collaborating and pulling our resources together to start going after funding and grants that, can really support not women right now, but the future and the legacies, because and how do we even tap down to, elementary school, girls. And so and I think that is a focus, a huge focus for me.
I think that's something that I've always felt, that people in leadership roles not only have their personal balance sheet, but they've got sort of the business balance sheet and the business assets and operations to leverage, because they're in a leadership role. So it could be something as simple as going in and doing some education of what careers for women are in that particular domain. It could be creating internships, apprenticeships, returnships. There's a lot of return to work moms that are still sort of in the early stages of their careers, or mums in the later stage of their careers that are looking to pivot and change direction as technology keeps changing. So I find that fascinating when you get, certainly with my Vistage group, when you get a group of leaders together and you get them thinking about the change that they're capable of making. It's a unique opportunity. It's not just their learning; it's their motivation and drive.
For sure, for sure. And even women, I think the flexibility of the remote work is so huge.
Yeah.
And I think the flexibility equals freedom so much. Because if you have an engaged employee, I mean, they are engaged all the time.
Yes.
So I mean, I have some of my best ideas, like taking a shower, shampooing my hair. I'm like, yes, that's so brilliant. But I have the flexibility to be able to have freedom, that I can, be able to pick my daughter up from carpool or take an active role, being the parent room mom, and not feel bad about that. But, the flexibility is so nice. But I mean, my husband works for a major company, and he has flexibility as well. Like, he's only in the office 2 days a week. And it's just so great having the family time, just him seeing him more, and him being able, hey, I'm going to walk Ava to school today. I'm like, yes. I mean, that only happens like once a month. Do not like.
but it's still once a month.
It is once a month, and it's so nice. But it's the freedom and being able to work remotely is really great.
I think it's huge. On remote work, I mean, there's a lot of conversation out there right now, and people are taking different positions on remote work, hybrid work. How does that impact teams? I've seen very drastic positions like Musk coming out and saying, you can work from home as much as you like, as long as you do 40 in the office. I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day that said, if you only want to work remote, get ready for your job to be offshored, because why do they need you here? So there's a lot of people that are very against remote. I'm quite for, and I think hybrid's a good mix. But how are you seeing some of your program members and other businesses that you consult with in the community tackling this hybrid work environment, and specifically when it comes to culture and team sort of connectedness, supporting each other? Are there any themes that you're seeing emerge?
Well, and funny that you asked that. One of my WLA alumni members, she's about to serve on the board, she just sent me an article, I'll have to forward it to you, about workplace culture for remote teams. And I was like, interesting. It's like, this would be we do like additional like webinars or lunch and learns. I'm continuing ed for our alumni. It's like, this would be great, because I think now we are past the whole COVID trauma.
Yes.
And so we've got to figure out how to form this new dynamic. And I don't think it's not one way or the highway. I mean, obviously we have learned that we have the capacity to work anywhere. So, and I do think that there should be a mix or figuring this out, but this is the conversation. But I don't think we can go back 100% to, you're in the office, I'm going to handcuff you to the desk, because a lot of times, I mean, there was low productivity. You just being in the office does not ensure that you are working.
The whole presenteeism.
No. I mean, I had a job one time that it was literally required. We were in the office every day from like 8 to 6. And I mean, I probably did like 4 hours of work a day. And then the rest, I was like shopping or doing a Starbucks run or taking a long lunch. I mean, and even coming from like an HR standpoint, there would be so much less office drama if people only had to be in the office for 3 hours and
turn
then got
up
to go
and do
home.
their real work. Yeah.
Right. But there's a lot that I think that element of control, we want to be able to control, like, oh, I see you working, but then that's micromanaging. And I mean, it's, I have worked from home for 8 years, and I personally love working from home. I feel, because I have like ADD, so I'm like distracted with people, right? I can't not talk to people. So I am really able to focus, and I like to be, and I'm an extrovert, but I like quietness. I love silent time. I love to work in silence, which is, I know, so strange. But I do better working from home. When COVID hit, obviously that was not work from home.
No. That was
called survival.
Yeah.
That was not, I'm pretty sure like I threw a stapler at like somebody in my family. I mean, it was really tough times.
Yeah, it was.
But you know, in homeschooling, that was all terrible, but so I don't recommend it, but we've got to figure out. And like I said, I'm so glad I'm not the person figuring this out. No offense, because there is battles, and you're going to have people stepping on they're going to fight. And so, however, if you stay on this side and you fight, this is my way, then you're missing the opportunity to be like, okay, let's bring in let's respect. We can do both.
I think people will ultimately opt into certain career paths, certain organizations based on how they handle that work dynamic and how they continue to keep teams coming together, whether that's one day a week of collaborative meetings, whether it's multiple days, whether they're doing team building on Zoom. You know, there's all sorts of different ways for it to happen. Doing retreats. I know some of the tech businesses will sort of say, hey, we're all going to go into this city and work for a week together and drive a whole lot of projects. They generally have a bit more money to throw around too.
Right. But I mean, I personally like being on a team. I love it. I mean, I had my own business, and I enjoy working with other people. I like the collaboration. And I mean, I have a home office, but they're going to put a desk so I can come up and have a desk. But then I'm like, wait, that kind of makes me nervous. Am I going to have to like get dressed every day? I mean, maybe we should just like go away with like business attire, right? So we don't care. Just show up, just wear your workout clothes. Like you only like get dressed for client meetings or something. But I mean, there's a lot that we're having to transform.
I'm really hopeful for these future like augmented reality glasses where we can all just wear like the most comfortable clothes that we want, and then we just press a button that says make this look like a suit or make this look like a smart casuals jacket and jeans, but it's still just the same comfy clothes.
Yes, like the Jets. Yes, that would be so nice.
That
I
would
would
make
like
it way
that.
easier.
I know.
Oh, definitely.
I know. I was all dressed the other day, and my Philip came out. He's like, "What are you? Where did you get? Why are you dressed up?" I was like, "Oh, I have an interview." And he's like, "Oh, this is so different." I'm like, "Whatever."
I know.
It is nice. It is nice. I'm not gonna lie, but it's also. I don't know that dynamic. I mean, they're having it obviously all over, trying to figure this out.
And some people, it's not healthy. Some people can't work from home. For other people, it's not healthy because they don't have the space, or there's 5 kids running around, or I've got a sick uncle or mother to look after, and the dogs, you name it. There's all sorts of reasons why working from home won't work for everyone. And I think it's interesting. I think all of our leaders need to be considering where their people are at, and then how to get the most out of their people and their teams. Like you said earlier, the platinum rule. How do they want to be treated, and how do I make that work in a way that I can scale and be consistent with? I think that's an interesting piece for teamwork in the future. But I've got a lot of hopes that we continue to make progress and solve a lot of these problems as we go.
Yes, for sure.
So we've touched on some really cool topics. It felt like there were a few topics that we could have just done a whole show and discussion on there today. I'd love to come back and talk more about equal pay. I think that would be a great story, a great education piece. I know Casey Brown, who's one of my favorite sort of speakers on pricing, she did a TED talk on women asking for what they're worth. They're not going to give it to you. You're going to have to ask for it, so get comfortable asking. And I thought that was a fantastic TED talk that she did. And we talked about forcing difference in meetings, knowing personalities, the importance of intentionality for, as a training professional. I love the fact that you agree that intentionality and really setting that time aside is very important for our leaders, particularly our women, our female leaders in the world of work, because most of those, whether they're a mom, a daughter, a niece, a wife,
the caretakers,
they still, the data still shows that they still take on more of the burden at home and in home life.
2.5 times more.
2.5. That's more than I thought.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's just so much good stuff to be getting into there. If anyone wants to reach out to you to talk about any of these topics or learn more about the Women's Leadership Academy at Loyola in New Orleans, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, you can Loyola University. I mean, I'm happy to share my email address or give the website.
Sure. What's the easiest?
So my actual email is aklandry at loyno.edu.
Great.
And then the website is loyola.edu. And then you can go to professional. I think it's professional and continuing studies. But yes, I mean, if anybody, if your listener wants to donate to the Women's Leadership Institute that we're growing to change the world and, just not take over the world, but just make it a better place for all of us. We're working on that. So hopefully this time next year, we'll be making some big progress and some changes, but
that's really exciting.
Open.
That's exciting. Well, I look forward to staying in touch and, definitely supporting the program and
thank you.
Picking your brain on a few of these ideas as we run into a few of those challenges with our customers and our own businesses too.
Well, I would love that. So thank you. Thank you for
Great.
having me. This was really fun. And I'm glad that technology and the weather, I was a little nervous that I was going to lose electricity. So I'm glad that.
I know we've had a bit of a run with the technology, but I'll let you know when I'm in New Orleans next, and we'll make sure to catch
Yes,
up.
please do. I would love it to get
Sure.
together. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.